You okay, Joel?
Ethan called from behind me. Deep in my thought, I had stood and was now staring out the windows at the rolling grass plains. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Spaced out there for a second. Bea stood from her spot at the board.
I've got to run to the bathroom really quick. Joel, can you keep an eye on him? I don't want him cheating.
Like a hawk, my lady, I told her. She headed out the room and I turned to Ethan. I won't tell her if you cheat, if you split that Kit Kat with me. Ethan laughed as I took a seat beside him. We sat silently for a moment before he spoke.
Are you sure you're okay?
Yeah, why? His tone grew solemn.
Oh, nothing. It's Andy's birthday tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, I saw the calendar when I marked it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's only been a year. It feels like so long ago.
I know. Time moves so damn slowly around here. It's certainly been a whole lot quieter without her. Silence fell over the room again before Ethan continued.
You know, I know I've said it before, but
Yeah?
she could have found it. You never know.
Maybe.
I like to think that she did.
I like to hope she did.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's good to talk about it. Can't pretend it didn't happen.
I hope Bee's okay. I know she doesn't like to talk about her, but I could tell she misses her a lot.
I don't blame her. The two were like sisters. I just think it's hard for her to think about it.
Yeah. She's always been closed off. Did you know that she's hardly told me anything about her life before the house?
Hey, you haven't told us anything either. Ethan laughed.
Dude, there is nothing to tell. My life was probably more boring before than it is now.
Shoot, speaking of boring, I said, looking at my watch. I was surprised the thing was still ticking after all this time. I promised Ben a game of chess.
Well, good luck with that.
Ethan told me as Bea returned to the room. Yeah, and good luck to you. I think you need it more, I said, smirky at Bea. I made my way through the living room and called out to Benjamin as I passed. Hey, Ben, I'm breaking out the chessboard. He marked his place in the book he was reading, then looked up with a smile.
Ah, it's about time. I was afraid you had forgotten. Or perhaps you were too afraid to lose?
I chuckled at his taunt and entered the bedroom to grab the board. As I walked in, I saw Daniel alone, staring out the bedroom window. I hesitated, debating whether he wanted to be by himself, but figured now might be the only time alone I would get to talk with him. Hey, Dan. How you holding up?
Huh? Oh, hey, Joel. I'm fine. You?
Good. Hey, not to pry, but you seem kind of solemn lately. Is everything all right?
Well, there's not much to be happy about around here.
Yeah, I suppose. I just wanted to make sure that you're all good. We care about you is all.
Wanting to make sure I'm not going to go all layer on you guys, huh?
I was abruptly taken aback by his statement. What? No, I was just... He laughed softly to himself.
Sorry, kid. I'm just messing with you. I'm fine. Just getting real sick of this place is all.
I sighed a heavy breath. Yeah, me too. Then you sure you're okay?
Yeah, sheesh. You're starting to sound like Jan.
I smiled. Her motherly instincts are rubbing off on me. I joined him at the window. Weird to think that we'll have a baby around here soon. Can you imagine being born in this place? Daniel suddenly grew dark, and I could feel tension fill the room.
No, I can't. No kid should have to live in a place like this. Besides, we got enough to deal with already. Caring for a baby will just throw more on our plates.
I suddenly regretted bringing up the topic. Yeah. We'll make it work, though. Anyways, I gotta get back to bed, I said, grabbing the board. I'll talk to you later,
Yeah.
he said vacantly to the window. The rest of the day went by as slowly as it usually did, moving from room to room and interacting with each member of our ragtag family, playing board games, listening to one of the 12 repetitive cassettes that the creature downstairs had brought us. There was one point, however, where something interesting happened. I had been sitting in the dining room talking with Grace and one of our other roommates, Claire, when we heard the thudding from below.
That's odd.
Grace started.
That thing usually goes down deeper after it does a drop. I wonder why it's still all the way up here.
Who knows with that thing? It never is consistent.
Claire scoffed. Yeah, it was a lot closer than normal today when Bea and I were running the basket, I added. Ethan thinks it may be getting smarter. Claire looked up at me with a smirk.
Speaking of you and V, how's that going?
What do you mean?
You know what I mean.
I can't say that I do,
Oh, Claire, stop teasing that poor boy.
Grace said, swatting her on the shoulder. Before long, the hillside began to grow dark as whatever sun lay behind the clouds started to set. We all began our nightly routine, taking turns in pairs to use the bathroom to wash up and brush our teeth. Since there were 9 of us, there was always one person who got the bathroom to themselves. The only caveat was that they were the last to go. Tonight, that person was me. I watched as the group filed into the bathroom 2 by 2. I began to grow nervous as the hillside became dimmer and dimmer. The room may have been just around the corner from the bathroom, but I still hated walking even a few feet in the dark. Bea and Jan were the last 2 out of the bathroom, and they passed by with a smile.
Good night, Joel.
See you in there.
Bea said with an enchanting look. I slipped into the bathroom and shut the door. I put a small dot of toothpaste on my far too worn down toothbrush and ran it under the chalky water from the old, rusted faucet. The sky beyond the skylight above was now almost black, and I abandoned hope of making it to the room before the body started roaming the hills. I sat on the bathtub's edge and got lost in thought for longer than what was probably necessary. My mind drifted to what Ethan had said earlier.
She could have found it. You never know.
I began to daydream about the thought. Maybe she had. Perhaps she was back in the world right now, laying in a real bed, in a real house. The horrors of this place were far behind her. I wondered if she would still think of us, think of me, wondering if we were okay, or if she tried to forget, to move on. I doubted the last thought. She wasn't that kind of person. She was warm, kind, and thoughtful, always looking out for the others and never herself. After all, that's why she had left in the first place. I spat my toothpaste in the sink and splashed some water onto my face. I left the bathroom light on, the only one in the house, in case anyone needed to go in the night, and stepped out into the hall, shutting the door behind me. My heart skipped a beat as I saw a figure standing in the sunroom looking out the window. I wondered if someone had somehow left the front door unlocked, but my fear dissuaded as they spoke.
Hey, brother.
Hey, I said plainly.
It's been a while.
It has.
How have you been?
Here,
Yeah, you have been.
he chuckled. He made his way through the living room and stopped next to me, leaning against the wall.
That girl who smiled at you a bit ago was cute. What's her name again? Bea?
I said nothing.
Hey man, I'm not judging. After all, it's been a year since that last girl went off. A year exactly tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
I don't blame you for wanting to move on. I bet it gets lonely around here.
I have all of them to keep me company.
That's true.
He spoke. He leaned close and whispered.
But I bet none of them can scratch that itch quite like she can.
I shuddered.
Well, I won't keep you, brother. I'm sure you have someone to get to. Have a good night.
He stepped around the corner into the kitchen and out of my sight. I stood alone in the darkness for a moment. I caught something move out the sunroom window and looked up. A figure stood there, a real one this time. It saw me looking and eagerly waved at me, then beckoned me closer. I turned to the bedroom and stepped inside, locking the door behind me. I collapsed into the pile of sheets that I called my bed and looked up at the ceiling. There were too many thoughts to sleep. I lay there for a while before I began to hear thudding beneath me, as well as the muffled notes of that stupid instrument. The thing was awake, although I suppose it always was. I could tell the room was nervous. It wasn't usually so active this soon after a drop. Softly next to me, I heard Bea stir from her bed. She scooted slowly across the floor to me and nestled close. I hesitated, his words still echoing in my mind. Still, eventually, I wrapped my arms around her and held her softly. She was warm, and her rhythmic breathing slowed my heartbeat down. One by one, I felt my worries melt away. I could tell she was scared. I was too. We all were. All of the time. Of the house, of the hills, and especially of the thing downstairs. Ever since our first night, that fear never wavered or went away. I envied the people who were in front of the house when we first encountered it. If only I could erase the scene from my mind.
What's this thing made of?
Larry yelled as he jumped on the doorknob. He held himself up by the trim of the door frame as he repetitively pounded the knob with the heel of his shoe. No matter how he tried, the door at the back of the bedroom would not open. If it weren't for the situation, I'm sure I would have found the scene pretty funny.
Calm down before you hurt yourself.
Grace warned.
This is ridiculous.
Larry yelled, hopping down.
There's no way a door like that should have been able to take that much force. That knob should have snapped before I even started jumping.
I don't think we're getting anywhere with this. It's obviously not going to open.
Well, what would you rather do? Because it's getting dark, and if we don't find a way out of this mess soon, we might just end up like that body outside.
Hillary.
Ethan corrected. The man ignored him.
There's another door in the kitchen.
Andy suggested.
The house goes further back. Maybe it loops around to this door? Or there are more answers that way?
We all exchanged looks in a loose way of agreement. We headed for the kitchen door and swung it open. Once again, the sight of the yellow room greeted us, along with the dark maw of the doorway beyond. A group of us stepped into the space while the rest of the party hung back. We looked at the open entrance before us and stood silently for a moment.
Well,
Andy nervously said.
This is it.
It's dark in there.
Daniel pointed out.
Why are there no windows?
We looked at him confused. It was an odd thing to worry about.
There are windows in every room of this house. Even the bathroom has a skylight. Why not this one?
What's the matter?
Larry sneered.
You afraid of the dark?
No. There's just something not right about it.
Larry peeked his head through the dark doorway and looked around. He slid his hand around the corner, and I could hear him flick a light switch a few times. Nothing changed in the room, however.
Well, it looks like it used to have light, but the bulbs are burnt. The stairs lead down. It looks like a finished basement with furniture. Maybe there's a phone down there.
Larry withdrew his phone from his pocket and clicked on his flashlight.
Anyone gonna come, or do I have to do this all alone?
A gentleman whose name I never got to learn stepped forward and turned on his phone's light on as well. Daniel did the same. Ethan stepped forward to follow, but Daniel raised a hand up.
Hold on now. We shouldn't all go at once. If what happened earlier with the hills is anything to go by, we should only go a few at a time. You kids wait here and listen for a signal.
Ethan stepped back next to us and nodded. Together, the three men cautiously stepped through the doorway and descended the stairs. As they did, Bea, Ethan, Andy, and I crossed to the door and looked over the railing. The room was big, with a balcony running the length of the wall where we stood. A set of stairs ran from the ledge down to the floor below, and the room seemed to run off further beneath us. The walls were white plaster with gray and black speckled carpet for the flooring, the kind you might find in an office. In the area below us, we could see a peeling white leather couch and a coffee table sitting right in the middle of the room, as well as a fake palm plant in the corner. The men reached the lounge below and looked off toward the space beneath the balcony.
There's a doorway down here.
Daniel called up to us.
We're gonna go in further. Just wait here.
Larry added. We watched as the three of them marched forward, the light of their flashlight growing increasingly distant until the room was again in darkness.
What on earth is this place?
Bea muttered. I'm beginning to wonder if we're even still on Earth, I replied.
Maybe we're dead, like in some kind of purgatory. We were all on the bus. Maybe it crashed.
Ethan chimed in.
Although I kind of hope I was in the clear for heaven.
Well, if that's the case, I didn't know they would have fluorescent lights in the afterlife.
Andy said, pointing to the burnt-out tube bulbs on the ceiling.
What did you guys find?
We heard Jan call from the other doorway behind us. The house goes down deeper. They went further in to check it out, I yelled back. She nodded, and then we began our wait. It was about 10 minutes before we heard voices below us and saw the light fill the room again. Larry, Daniel, and the other man stepped into the lounge and looked up at us.
This place is seriously not right.
Daniel called up. What do you mean?
It just keeps going back, and there are so many rooms it's like a maze. Not a single light in any of them either. More stairs go further down, but we thought we'd come back in and fill you all in first.
Did you find anyone else?
No.
It gets weirder, the other man added. All the rooms are different styles. Some of them look older than others. Then right on the other side of that one, it looks new again. It's like 5 different architects were all working on a different project in the same building.
Do you want us to help explore?
Ethan asked.
No, just stay up there. This place down here gives me the creeps. Don't want anyone getting hurt.
Come on.
Larry snapped.
I want to hurry up and get out of here. Let's keep looking. There's gotta be some...
Everyone went silent. We looked down at the men in confusion, but they just looked up at us with the same expression.
What was that?
Daniel asked. Maybe something fell over? The man suggested.
What is that?
Larry asked.
It sounds like one of those kids' toys. What are they called again?
A xylophone?
Yeah, that's it. A xylophone.
Each man nervously exchanged looks, trying to decide what to do. Someone was playing a xylophone in a pitch-black basement, one they had just found nobody in. If whoever it was had wanted to be seen, they would have. They were now clearly making themselves known. Finally, the man whose name I never learned stepped forward. Hello? The playing abruptly stopped. Silence. Larry suddenly stepped forward.
Listen here. If there's someone there, you better show yourself now. I'm getting really pissed off.
He didn't get to finish his sentence. It was cut by the most chilling, ear-shattering sound I had ever heard. A high-pitched squeal came from below, the kind you might hear a baby make when it laughs. It was as sharp as nails on a chalkboard and as loud as a car horn in my ear. By the time my brain had registered what I had just heard, the men below me were already at the base of the steps. Larry plowed his way through, charging up first with Daniel and the other man following close behind. I heard something thudding down whatever dark hallway lay beneath and making its way to the room. I stood there looking down in shock and watching the men sprint up the steps to safety when I felt an arm grab my shoulder.
Come on, let's go!
Bea yelled. That jarred me from the shock, and I quickly leaped back through the door to safety. We ran through the yellow room and slammed into the crowd that was waiting.
Hide! Something's coming!
Andy cried. Everyone had already heard the horrible squeals, but that really set them off. They ran for the bedroom screaming. A few dashed into the bathroom and shut the door, locking it behind themselves. I looked back to the yellow room to see the men just reach the doorway. My heart pounded for them as I watched their attempt to escape. Larry ran inside and spun around the door.
Hurry, damn it!
He screamed with a trembling voice. Daniel flew through the doorway with the other man in tow. I heard the thing screech again as its body soared up the steps. Larry attempted to slam the door, but something suddenly obstructed it. An arm foreign to any known creature slid through the crack. It was humanoid, but its skin was tumorous, with large growths and lumps across its surface, and bent in a way that didn't make sense. It was double the length and size of any human's arm, but still bony and thin. The fingers on the thing's hand were the same, elongated and skeletal, boasting grimy, yellowed fingernails. While the sight alone was horrific, one thing haunted me the most. Its skin. It was several different tones just on the arm alone. Black, white, tan, and pale, all hastily slapped on and wrapped around the thing's limb, stretched over every bump and tumor. My stomach churned at the sight. It shot through like a spear and lashed onto the nameless man's torso. Its fingers snaked around his body like an anaconda. The man let out a cry, and Daniel turned back. He dashed for the door and threw himself up against it alongside Larry. They leaned hard, trying to prevent the being from yanking the man back into the darkness. All the while, he pounded on the thing's hand, hoping to break free. It all proved useless. In one instant, the creature yanked its arm back through. The man's body got caught between the door and the doorway, but that didn't matter either. I heard his bones snap as it forced him through the small space, and I listened to his screams as he was dragged off below. There's a reason I never learned his name. Daniel and Larry ran over to our door and slammed it shut, clicking the lock into place. Larry keeled over and threw up onto the floor, and Daniel looked at us with abject horror. I turned to see that Andy and I were the only two who had stayed to witness what had just happened. None of us could say anything. We all just sat in the hallway by the kitchen for a long while, thinking. Finally, Larry broke down into sobs.
What is this place?
We said nothing. Daniel stood and crossed back over to the kitchen.
What are you doing? Don't open that again!
What? Do you think I'm a lunatic?
He snapped back. He stopped in front of a wooden pantry tucked off to the side of the kitchen and began to drag it until it rested in front of the door.
It snapped that guy in half.
Andy said softly.
I don't know if that'll be enough to stop it.
Probably not, but it's all we can really do.
We would end up losing one more person to the thing in our time here. A man named Matt. After a few weeks of living off of only water from the bathroom taps, the need for food became apparent. Daniel and Larry told us they had seen some cupboards and shelves downstairs with cans and boxes of food on them. We had two options. Have people risk going down there for food, avoiding the creature along the way, or sit in the house until we starved. After that, we were afraid that we might have to go to a Donner Party on each other. Larry refused to venture back down into the basement. While he had been an absolute jerk since our arrival, I understood why. Luckily, Daniel volunteered, and Matt agreed to go with him.
It's all hopeless anyway,
he had said.
We die either way.
However, when they opened the door to the yellow room, they were surprised to find a basket full of items waiting for them. Unfortunately, they took the time to sort through them then and there. According to Daniel, they had shut the door to the stairs before they had started looking. That's how we learned it could open doors. He heard them before long and came charging fully into the room. Matt had been closest to the door and was unfortunately grabbed by the thing and dragged into the basement. Daniel told us he didn't even scream, or looked scared at all for that matter. He looked like he knew his fate was inevitable. However, Matt was another person who gave his life to teach us the rules of the house. The thing leaves us baskets. We take the baskets quickly. We don't wait around. We had his name painted on the kitchen wall like Hillary's. I had asked Daniel several times throughout the years what the thing looked like. He was the only one who had ever fully seen it. He would never tell me though. He would shake his head and softly say,
Just be glad you don't fully know what brings our food to us.
Are you okay?
Bea whispered softly in my ear.
Your heart is beating really fast.
I hadn't realized how caught up in the memory I had gotten. I said nothing, but began to gently run my fingers through her hair. She gave me a reaffirming squeeze and then relaxed into sleep. I lay there for a bit longer, listening to the thing below. We had gotten used to the racket over the years. Most of the time, you could sleep through it. Sometimes, I liked to listen to it, try to figure out what it was doing down there. Why was it here? Why did it want us so badly? I listened closely in the darkness, listening to its footsteps and hearing its faint notes echo through the halls.